Astrocared back again, and today I've got a follow-up video to an upload I made about 8 months ago, and that was which PlayStation games gave you that nice feeling of nostalgia. Now for me it was the Resident Evil games, Tomb Raider, and I think it was Die Hard Trilogy. They were the games that really did it for me, and you know, I know everybody's different. But on that video I had a couple of recommendations. Now Halo Brown recommended Colony Wars. Now I'd never heard of this game, obviously a bit of research now, I know it's part of a trilogy. But I tell you what, it was a really, really interesting game. And the other game, my good friend Chris, if you're out there, Chris, thanks so much for that. He gave me Ridge Racer, which another one. I was pretty bad at driving games back in the day. I just used to struggle to get in the top 3 or 4, or you know, you had to get to the extended time to keep the game going. I used to struggle. So for that very reason, I didn't sort of buy many of the racing games. Because the other thing is we're going to get on to. If you look at that, the price was £45. Now I went on the Bank of England website where it's got a calculator, an inflation calculator, to different years. And that £45 was the equivalent to £94 now. So, you know, we talk a lot about the expensive games, but, you know, that was quite expensive back in the day. And obviously, I think overall games have got more expensive, I think, you know, especially with DLCs. You know, you've got to pay more money after a game is already out. Whereas the old argument that back in the day, you had the game, you had all of it. But of course, that was expensive back in the day, £45. I remember, you know, because I'd left home struggling to buy many. But that's why I put in a thumbnail about whether you need that nostalgic connection to play an older game. You know, to enjoy an old game, do you have to have memories of when you were playing as a kid or with your mates? But personally, I don't think you do, because the way I look at it is, Colony Wars, for example, I had never played before. I didn't know anything about it. Now, I did some of the reading in the instructions. That's the other thing. Going back to PlayStation 1, you got really big instruction booklets. You know, it's excellent, really. And I think as time's gone, PS2, you know, we had some instructions, but they sort of thinned down a bit and we don't have the big booklets. But I read a fair amount of the booklets. But the thing is, I gave it the time. I think that's the trick, playing older games that you never played back in the day. You got to push through that first hour. And I did with Colony Wars and Ridge Racer to a point. And I pushed through that barrier where you start to realise what the programmers were doing and what a good game is. Now, for me, a good game doesn't really matter when it was written. It could be written 1982 or this year. If a game's good, it's good. And sometimes you have to look into a game, pass through the pain barrier, if you like, to understand what the programmers are dealing with and how well they've done at that time. But anyway, let's push on. Let's have a look at Colony Wars and Ridge Racer. Well, there we go. I think everybody remembers the start of this game, and why wouldn't you? She's holding up a novice sign, which is bang on the money for me. She must know about my abilities at video game racing games. I've come out the car, as you can see, because I used to struggle a little bit with the view from inside the car. I think the good players out there, the good racing video gamers, would stick inside the car. I think that's probably the way to do it, really, but I used to struggle with that. And there you go, there's me trying to go through cars rather than around them, which isn't obviously the Ridge Racer way. Oh, helicopter! Oh, and I bang into the wall again, which is a cardinal sin for time. It slows you right down in this game. I obviously worked that out. But anyway, we're off and running, and I'm picking my way through the field, he says, in 9th position. But such a vibrant game, you know, looking back, you can see why it's such a special game. And also, the other thing is, you know, it was one of the games, you know, that really was like the arcade game. You know, the PS1 started to bring things up to another level, you know, to actually have a console that had games nearly or as good as arcade machines was really something very special, bit of a mind blower really at the time. And this obviously really helped sales of the PlayStation. It was a big game, iconic game now obviously, and spawned a load of sequels. Looking into it, bit of research, a lot of people seem to think Ridge Racer 4 is the best one. I don't know what people out there think, but that seems to get the vote for a lot of people, and I might look into picking that one up maybe. But there you go, worked my way up to 7th place, and I've not hit a barrier or a wall for a while, which is pretty good. But the other thing about the game is it's so vibrant, so sort of colourful, so slick. You know, it was brilliant really. The music really buzzy, really happening. And I think just the sort of the whole thing about the terrain, the blue skies and the mountains, just sort of, when you put the whole thing together, it's fantastic really. Just a really great game. And there I go, I've worked my way up to 5th place. Happy with myself as someone who doesn't think they're much of a video game car racer. Here we go, up on the inside, through into 4th place. Oh, and there it is. There's a bit of a skid. I don't know if you'd call that a drift. Probably a mistake, really. But I made my way into 3rd place nonetheless. But there we go. So Ridge Racer came about obviously because of a driving simulator, which is amazing really. I think it was called Sim Drive, and it sort of spawned from there. Now obviously into the arcades and then finally onto PS1. Amazing really. But there you are, 3rd place. Going to push my way up the field into 2nd place. I had to play this for about 2 to 3 hours to get a win, which just shows you I'm not the best player. I think most of you out there probably got a win within about 10-15 minutes of playing this game. But there we go, I'm into 1st place. I was happy with that result and that was pretty good for me. But there you go, Ridge Racer. Really special game. Looking back, I think I wish I'd played it a lot more really. We go from the vibrancy and colour of Ridge Racer to the dark reaches of space and colony wars.
The Earth Empire controlled the skies.
Now, you'd swear that was James Earl Jones, wouldn't you? But apparently it's not. It's just a guy doing his voice, and he does a good job. He nails it. Anyway, it's in the future. Earth has got its hands on sort of hyperspace travel, gone out to other planets, stolen stuff that they want for themselves, which you can sort of understand, but they did it. And anyway, you're fighting for the League of the Free World to try and keep Earth at bay, fight for what is right. Yeah, fantastic game this. Really pleased I got the recommendation. The sort of game I wouldn't have known about without finding out from somebody. I'm really pleased. It looks a lovely game. This is part of the training exercise actually. There's many training tutorials and I was really pleased because you need them with this game. You really need them to progress in the game later on.
And then keep track of it in the center of your HUD. When the target has been locked, you may fire.
And there you go. You can really tell it's giving you a step-by-step guide. Now, I always love the music in games. This is done by a guy called Tim Wright. There's a lovely piece of music coming up here. I say lovely, it's very downbeat, but what it represented was the struggle in the game. And that's what I really liked. Sometimes music really works well in games. Now this was the combat. Look at it, it's absolutely gorgeous. I think it looks fantastic for a PS1. Bit blocky there when sort of spaceships blow up and stuff, but you know what, look at it, the way the stars and things are zooming through space, little bits of debris, lasers firing out into the distance. I thought it really looked lovely. I really did enjoy this game, and I'm definitely going to look into the sequels. It's me struggling to sort of shoot fighters out of space. Hey, but there you go, I managed it. But really love this game, Colony Wars. Excellent. Well, there you go, that's Colony Wars and Ridge Racer. I thoroughly enjoyed both those games. Colony Wars, as I say, I pushed through where I couldn't understand everything. I'm not saying I understood everything by the time I'd stopped playing. But I thought, what a good game, and I'm definitely going to pick up the sequels. Now, if you're out there and you've played the sequels, let me know. I could be wasting your money on the sequels, but if they're half as good as Colony Wars seem to be, they'll be well worth the money. And Ridge Racer, thanks again, Chris. Ridge Racer, I didn't play it much back in the day, but what a good game. Really enjoyable. But anyway, the next video I'll be doing, I'll be back to my Mastertronic games. Posties brought me 2 or 3 Mastertronic games in the post. I'll be playing them as soon as I get some time, and I'll be doing another upload on those soon. Anyway, take care of yourself, everybody.